Hello again. This is going to be an intro for John, one of the co-founders of Major League Hacking, where I now proudly coach. He was super great to talk to, and I'm really glad I was able to meet him in person. And I also want to preface this by saying that sadly some of my audio clips messed up, but thanks to my friend Owen, who I'll plug here, I was able to save it enough where you can hear him actually talk. So apologies in advance for any small static you hear, but I hope you enjoy the story. Bye now.
All good? Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Jon Gottfried. I am the co-founder of Major League Hacking. I'm also our head of engineering and product right now. Um, I want to talk about my first hackathon. So I actually have a history degree, not a computer science degree. I was always a hobbyist programmer. And, I had friends who were constantly trying to drag me to tech events, but I didn't really understand what they were about or what kind of people would be at them. I was really intimidated. And so I didn't really want to go. I was kind of afraid to go to that first event. And they finally dragged me kicking and screaming to this event in New York City, which is near where I grew up, called Music Hack Day. And it was unlike anything I had ever seen before. I had only really ever associated programmers with Dilbert, like people sitting in a cubicle, really boring work, like kind of stale, uninteresting stuff. And my friend dragged me into this room, and it was full of all sorts of honestly oddballs, like musicians, hackers, creatives, designers, who had all decided to spend their weekend not just building stuff for some faceless company, but building stuff because they were passionate about the intersection of music and technology. And so I showed up to this event, and I was like, I'm gonna build an app that generates mashup. Because at the time, Girl Talk and all these mashup DJs were really popular. And so I used this API from this company called Echo Nest, which no longer exists. And it was a Python API. And I had never written a line of Python before. I had only ever done PHP. And so I tried to build a PHP web app that called a Python command line utility from their example repos, just to get it to do some vague version of what I imagined. And I stayed up all night, and it barely worked. It was super janky. But this event had everyone get up on stage and demo to the room full of 200 people. And so I got up on that stage and I showed off this janky app that I was a little bit embarrassed by, but also I was like, okay, I did it. I might as well show it off. And I remember this feeling where people started coming up to me after my demo being like, that was sick. How can I help work on it in the future? What are you doing with it next? What are you envisioning for it in the future? And I thought this was a really kind of silly sample project I had built, but so many people were inspired by just the concept of what I was going for that it totally changed my perspective on tech. Suddenly I found people who were passionate about technology, passionate about building, and just enjoyed building for the sake of building. And that's what hooked me on getting into the tech industry. And honestly, it's the same sort of philosophy that guides a lot of what goes on at MLH. Um, I see this happen all over the world. Whenever I go to hackathons, and it's been 12 years now, right? So I've been to a lot of hackathons. I see the same kind of intrinsic motivation where people are there because they want to learn. They want to build something really cool. They're exploring technology in a new way. And that's what keeps us going, being able to create that time and space and environment where people can unlock that kind of creativity. Um, One of my favorite projects I've seen over the years was at this event called Brick Hack up at Rochester Institute of Technology in upstate New York. And I ran into this guy there, Ben, who I had known for a couple of years. He was a pretty prolific hacker. And I went to the event. He was like, "Hey man, this is my last hackathon ever. I'm about to graduate." I was like, "Wow, that's so sad. What are you gonna do for your last hurrah?" He was like, "I can't tell you. It's this big secret." And so he went away and he hid in a back classroom at this hackathon, and was working the whole time. And we get to the final demos where everyone had set up in the expo. And I went over to Ben's table and I was like, "Hey man, what did you do?" And there was nothing on this table. No laptop, no phone, nothing. He was like, "Yo, come with me." And so he walks me out of the demo room, through a long hallway, out into the parking lot. And it was the middle of winter, so we were freezing. And we go into the parking lot and we walk over to his really beat up hand me down car that he had in college. He was like, "Get in." So he opens the door and I get in the driver's seat and he's like, "Cool, check out the demo." And the car just starts driving on its own. He had created this crazy system of 3D printed gears and levers and like buttons that was basically self-driving his car around this parking lot. I knew at that moment that there was like a 50-50 chance that I died or I had just seen the coolest hackathon project I'd ever seen. Luckily, it was the latter, but it totally blew my mind. Like him and his friends had just scrapped together this like prototype self-driving car in a parking lot in like 2000 and whatever it was, like 16. And it really just like reminded me of that sort of like first moment that I had. Obviously, his project was a lot cooler than mine, but like it reminded me of that moment where it was like anything is possible if you just like find the time and space and collaborators to make it happen. And hackathons are a space that unlock that. And you know, every day at MLH, I feel honored that we get to create that moment for tens of thousands of people around the world. So happy hacking.